Okay, now we're using the bottles. So you have your bottles here. I want you to face this side. Face on the side. Perfect. Hapo. Relax. Remember your back. Don't arc it much. Just a little bit. Hapo. Kama tu venye unafanyia kwa gym too. There's not much difference. So we're here. Pushing it down. Easy. Easy. Feel the movement. Easy. Yes. Up. Good job. Those are 4. Twende kazi. 5. 6.
Oh, it burns so much.
7. 8. Twende guys. Push it. 9. Good job. 10. Bado tuko hapa. 10 more. 1. Wenye una complaining hizi mataya, sijui nini, these are the workouts guys. Biceps, triceps. Tunachoma hii. 7 to go. Twende kazi. 6 left. Last 5. 4 to go. Good job, Nelly. Let's go. 3 to go, guys. Push it. 2 more. Last one. Relax. Tuko hapa. Good. Now, I'm gonna place. I want Nelly to sit here. Good job. Katie. Now, we're getting into a Russian twist. Sawa sawa. Songa nyuma kidogo, Nelly. Just move backwards kidogo. Perfect. Now, we're engaging the sides, the core, hapa. Sawa sawa. We're doing something we call the Russian twist. Hapa. I want those bottles to go all the way down. Chini. Ziguze chini. Ivo. Good job, Nelly. Push it. Push it. Twende kazi. Twende kazi, eh? If you feel you want to challenge yourself, you can take your legs up a bit there. Sawa sawa. Apo, I know. Twende kazi. Push it, push it, push it. If you want to challenge yourself up, just raise your legs up a bit, then just engage the core and twist to sides, okay? Twende kazi. Push it. Don't quit on me, guys. You can't. You cannot even try. Wezi atafikiria kitu kama hiyo. You cannot fathom such. Never. Twende kazi. Twende kazi. 10 to go. This one we're pushing it at least 30 reps. Twende. 8 to go. 7 to go. Good job, Nelly. 6 to go. 5 to go. Those who complain is mataya, issues doing nini, we're strengthening our core, we're working on our core. Twende kazi. 4 to go, Nelly. Last 3. Push it. Last 2. Last 1. Perfect. Relax. Catch your breath. Catch your breath. Relax. Now, from there, tunaingia shoulder planks. So, I want you to have your bottles hapa mbele yako. Just press them hapo tu mbele yako. Okay? You have them there mbele yako. So now, we're doing a shoulder tap. This is basically a shoulder tap. Hapo. Sawa. Your hands are straight. Your legs are straight. You facing. Yes, guys, hapo. Already engaging the core just by the virtue of you being there. So if you can do what I'm going to demonstrate next, just stick there. You're doing the right thing. Okay. So we're doing the shoulder taps. So you tap right, tap left, take the water, face up. Hapo. Sawa. Then you change. Tap, tap, the other hand, and up. Then shoulder tap, then the other hand, and up. Perfect. Nelly, we ready? I'm ready for you. Are you ready? Are you ready? We're starting. We're starting. Get ready. Sawa sawa. Do what you can, guys. If you can't go that much, just hold it there. It's still a good plank. Twende, Nelly. Up. Face up. I want you to twist your body and face the roof. Perfect. Twende. Tap. Tap. Take the water. Up. The other one. Up. Good job. Those are 2. Twende kazi. Push it. Good job, Nelly. Try to twist your body. Kabisa, kabisa. As you face up, twist it. Ivo. Keep the hand up. Up to the ceiling. Twende kazi. Those are 4, guys. Twende kazi. Control the weight of the water. Yes, Ivo. Those are 5. Twende kazi. 10 more to go. Those are 6. Yes, I'm counting. The other side. Those are 7. Twende kazi. 8 to go, Nelly. Doing well. You're doing well. Twende. Up. And up. Those are 8. 7 to go. 6 to go. You're doing fine. Don't complain. Do what you can. If you can't be on that plank position for long, put your knees down on the mat and just stretch it out. All right. Whatever you do, don't stay still. Whatever you do, keep on moving. Keep on trying. Today it might be very hard. It might be very tough, but you're getting there, guys. Like I said, consistency. That's what we're looking at. It's not an issue of perfection. It's not about how much of the workout you can do. It's how consistent you're going to be in terms of your workout. Okay? So Nelly, give me 4 more. 4 more, 4 more, 4 more, 4 more, Nelly. You're doing fine. Good job. 3 more. 3 more. Only 3 to go. 3. Good job. 2 to go. 2 to go. If you can, yes, if you can twist it all the way up, perfect. If you can't, do what you can. That's it. Emulate it to your level best. Good job, Nelly. Take a breather. Relax. Breathe. How are you feeling? Yeah, it's burning, eh? That's set number 1. So we're taking a 30-second breather. Relax. We're here. We're doing an active rest. We're here. March down. It's an active rest for at least 20 more seconds. Tuko hapa. Five more seconds. Good job. Nelly, are you ready? Come back to your position, Nelly. We're starting back again from the top. Tunaanza na biceps tena. Tuingie tricep. Sasa, tulianza na hammer curl with the bicep curl. So remember, bicep curl comes up curling. Your fingers are literally kind of facing you. With the hammer curl, it's the opposite. As if you're hammering something. All right? We ready?
Yeah.
Nelly, we ready?
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go. Hammer curl. Give me a hammer curl. Let's go. Give me a bicep curl. Give me a hammer curl. That's 2. 3. Give me a curl. Give me a hammer. 4. Use whatever you can. Something light, something heavy, depends on your physical fitness level, guys. So give me what you can. Give me what you can. Twende kazi. 10 to go. 8 left. Nelly, good job. You're doing perfect.
Oh, yeah.
7 to go. Twende kazi. You feeling it?
Yeah.
Perfect. 6 to go. 5 to go. 4 left. 4 to go. 3 to go. 2 to go. You're doing fine. Last one. Relax. 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 10 seconds breather. Relax those hands. From there, remember, tunaingia kickback with an overhead extension. If you want to challenge yourself, I challenge you. Go into a squat position. Sawa sawa. Only for the overhead extension. Here. You can also be engaging your legs at the same time. Sawa sawa. So tunaanza na kickback. Nelly, you ready?
Yeah.
Let's go. Start. 1, 2. Don't swing. Easy. Up. 3, 4. I want your body firm like that. Don't swing. I know most of us don't want to katabia ka. I know it's the rhythm. I don't blame you. I also do it at times. I don't blame you. But don't shake. Don't move your body. That's the rhythm I'm looking for. This is the muscle we're engaging, guys. So nakazi. 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 to go. 9 to go. 8 left. 7 to go. 6 to go. Last 5. Last 4. 3, 2, and 1. Perfect. From there, tunaingia the overhead extension. Like I said, Nelly, you're doing just the typical overhead extension standing.
Yeah.
I'm going to do mine on a squat position. Sasa.
Yeah.
So if you want to challenge and you want to engage your legs, this is the position to be in. Nelly, are you ready?
Yeah.
Let's do 1. Up. 3. Twende kazi. 6. 7, 8. Twende kazi. Yes, here, squat. Doing a sumo squat. Upper. Then engage them. Up. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. 5 to go. 4 to go. 3 to go. 2 to go. Twende kazi. Last one. Relax. Ooh, breathe. Relax. Relax, relax. Perfecto. From there, tunaingia deadlift with a front raise. Okay? You ready? Perfect. Let's go, start. Front, 1. Twende kazi, don't quit. 2, we're working on our lower back. I want you when you come up, mama straight, then straight, perfect. Down, then straight, perfect. Is that 3? 4, 16 to go. Twende kazi, skuma. 5, tuendelee. Posture, back, back, back. Sawa, stuck hivi. Hapo. So shoot your bum out. Hapo. Twende kazi. Chin up. Face forward. Good job. Those are 8. 9 to go. Yes. Lower back. Very good for your lower back. 7 to go, Nelly. You're doing good. 6 left. Good job. 5 to go. 5 counts, guys. Only 4 more counts. 4 more counts. Twende kazi. 3 more counts. Twende kazi. 3 more counts. 2 more counts. Breathe. 2 more counts. Twende kazi. Last count. Good job. Perfect. Relax. We're here. Listen, we can still get you to that physical body that you so much desire to have. Okay? Yes. Just by you being at home. Remember, tunakaa nyumbani kwa sababu serikali inasema tukae nyumbani so that we're able to fight this corona thing. So please kindly stay at home. We have lots of workouts for you, and like we said, engage us, give us your feedback. We want to make it more interesting, more variation, at least to be able to get you viewers at home to enjoy whatever we're doing. Okay? Twende kazi. That's 1. Good job. It's 2. We're only doing 20 reps. Only 20 reps. 3. Sisi wote tucheze our role and let's komesha corona. Sawa. Stay at home. Keep your social distance. Sanitize. Clean your hands. Wear your mask. Be physically active. Have a nice diet. All that will help us all. In case one of us contracts it, if you're physically active, it helps. Your immune system will be able to fight the disease. We are not saying you're going to get it, but we're saying let's all protect ourselves and let's all stay safe. Good job. Perfect, Andele. Good. Good job. Remember, like I said, if you cannot be able to do all that, just do a plank there and just stand still there. That's fine. Up or two. That's enough. Okay. Good job, Nelly. If you feel tired at some point, you can place your knees down on the floor and still be able to go on with the same workout. Push it, Nelly. You're doing fine. Good job. Good job. Push it. Push it. 6 more counts to go, Nelly. Tendele. You're doing good. You're doing good. Good job. 3 more counts to go. Stay at home, stay safe. Let's work out, guys. It's doable. 2 more counts to go. Remember, stay tuned to NTV every day, Monday to Friday, 6:30 to 7 a.m. Okay? NTV TV Nyumbani, courtesy of NTV. Me and Eve have a lot of goodies for you guys. Give us your feedback. How are you feeling? Good one?
Super exhausted.
Perfect. I hope you enjoyed the workout. I hope you have learned something that you can actually do at home to be able to strengthen your upper body. Do as many reps as possible. Do as many sets as possible. We're going to finalize our workout with a good stretch. Then we're done for the day. We'll do a stretch standing up. Nelly, you start here. No problem. I'm here. Come here, right?
It's not stable.
Yes. If you can. No, you're fine. Relax. Just breathe in, breathe out. Good job. Bring in the knee. Up.
Same leg.
Yes, same leg. If you can't balance, hold on to the wall or something else. Sasa. Naelewa. The other side. Bring it in. If you can do this one, there's always a stretch. We do the one we do seated down. You can still do it the same. It's the same workout. The same stretch. The same stretch. Sorry. There's still the same stretch. Okay. Good job. You're here. The other leg. Good job. You're here. Twist the ankle one side, the other side.
Stability.
Stability maneno wa monyota. Haya, shikilia ukuta. You can hold on to the wall in case you're not able to stabilize. Just hold on to the wall there. Perfect. Just pull it in and just breathe. Just breathe. Good job. Then now from there we're breathing in, breathe out. Breathe in from here. Breathe in. Out. Twende. Breathe in. Out. Last time, breathe in. And out. Thank you so much. Stay tuned again tomorrow for another episode of NTV Teasing Nyumbani. Thank you for keeping us company. Thank you for choosing NTV. Have a lovely day. God bless.
Bye.
When you're facing stubborn stains, you're always in a fierce fight. Clean Soft kicks out stains. Kimateki.
Have you shared your bongo points with someone who needs them? Remember to help a friend or anyone in need to buy food using your bongo points. Stay at home, but still stay together with your loved ones and friends using bongo points. Share your story or video of how you've helped a fellow Kenyan to our FB page NTV Kenya, Twitter page at NTV Kenya, Instagram at NTV Kenya, SMS 20686 or our WhatsApp number 0745 925 002.
Entertain your callers with your favorite tune when they call you. To get Yeah by Josh Extra, dial star 811 star 930 hash. To get Nakupenda by Mwenye Haki, dial star 811 star 937 hash. To get Bow by Kasim Ganga, dial star 811 star 926 hash. Skiza na Nation.
This is NTV.
Hello East Africa, welcome to your world. My name is Joseph Warungu, and as you continue to make sense of your new normal, working from home, learning from home and staying safe, we're here to support you with information, tips and experiences about COVID-19 from East Africa and from around the world. Our hashtag is new normal, but you can also send us your comments and questions via WhatsApp. Now here's what we have in store for you this morning.
We always have in our budget an emergency fund of 5 billion shillings, meaning what we have always anticipated, things like drought, things like floods, earthquakes, this fund is always available. We have never, as a government, estimated this level of spread and size of emergency.
Failing to plan is planning to fail, and while no one would have foreseen a global crisis of this magnitude, some nations have always set aside emergency budgets in anticipation of such times. Kenya, unfortunately, may not be one of them. With a lot of gloom and no glam, sisters venture to bake cakes with a touch of humor during the pandemic so as to put a smile on children's faces. Keeping safe by staying safe at home is a strange normal to many of us. That's the need to come up with creative ways to cope with a new normal. Animal holograms light up streets of Paris during confinement in a bid to allow people to dream a little. Now, let's look at the latest COVID-19 numbers in East Africa and the rest of the world. Starting from the global scene, as at this moment, we've got 3,220,000 people, 268 who've been confirmed positive, and 1,355,000 have recovered. Total deaths around the world is 228,224. Here in Kenya, this is the situation. 18,597 people have been tested, 384 have been confirmed positive, 15 people have so far died, 129 have recovered. And across East Africa, this is the situation. Starting from maybe Tanzania, 480 confirmed positive, 16 people have died, and 167 people have recovered. In Ethiopia, the positive cases are 130, 3 deaths, and the recovered people 58. Somalia, the number of people confirmed positive 528, 28 people have died, and 19 people have recovered. And just across the other side of East Africa, in South Sudan, the number of positive cases 34. No one so far has been reported dead, and no one has been reported to have recovered. In Uganda, the positive cases stand at 79. No one so far has died as far as reporting is concerned, and 52 people have recovered. In Rwanda, 212 people confirmed positive. No one has so far died. 95 people have recovered. In Burundi, 11 people confirmed positive, and they've reported their first death, with 4 people having recovered. That's the situation in East Africa and around the globe. Now, how well are we prepared to cushion ourselves from the effects of COVID-19? That's our question today. So how well are we prepared to cushion ourselves from the effects of COVID-19? Now, the pain of the heavy rains is unrelenting, coming at a time when the country is battling the coronavirus pandemic. 116 Kenyans have lost their lives to the ongoing floods across the country, according to Devolution Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa. This comes a few days after the weatherman warned of heavy rains across different parts of the country that are likely to continue until June. Rozongoi has more.
Residents of Chetambe, Webuye East, woke up to some shocking news after a couple was buried alive after their house collapsed following heavy rains. 23-year-old Alex Wekesa and his wife, was 8 months pregnant, were asleep in the house when tragedy struck on Wednesday morning. Their lifeless bodies were unearthed from the rubble.
Nimeona hapa maajabu kwa mtoto yangu, alijenga nyumba kaangukia yako.
Hundreds of people have for the past 3 days been stranded at Kanoto after a key road linking Tana River to Garissa was ruined by floods. More than 30 heavy commercial vehicles loaded with perishable and non-perishable goods destined for Mombasa and Garissa could not progress on their journeys, with traffic stretching kilometers on either side. And respite seems foreign as the water level increases each day, causing heavy losses to transporters and farmers.
The structure in Tana River is a nightmare. We have just come from the Masalani Bridge, and we could see again there that the bridge is about to be washed away.
Milala siku tano, nimeingia hasara 1 million na 1.5 hasara.
Sasa ma MP muko kwenye parliament kule mnavaa goggles mnalala, ama wakati ya kura ndio mtatukujia, ndio alafu mnasema mtu wape kura, na mnaona ile mateso hapa vile watu wanapata.
In a Manjalala location, Kwanza constituency, more than 2,000 families have been rendered homeless after River Sabwani broke its banks. Devolution Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa says flash floods have caused death and left a trail of destruction.
We have had over 116 lives lost to floods. We have also had over 100,000 households displaced. So we are urging that this humanitarian crisis that we are facing, even as we face it, let us work with the Ministry of Health and all the guidelines that have been given.
The displaced families have sought refuge in schools or IDP camps. They do not have masks, and to them, social distancing is out of the question. They say their problems are bigger than COVID-19.
It might be a challenge where we have families displaced, gathered in schools, but we must still utilize the schools that are yet to be opened to create enough space and distancing to ensure that we do not, in the process of supporting or lending humanitarian support to families displaced by floods, also expose them to the coronavirus.
The CS says 29 counties have been affected and the government has put in measures to assist the affected families.
For the displaced, we want to assure Kenyans that we have enough food in the country and we will be able to support all those who have been displaced so that they are able to receive this support.
Counties have set up emergency units to help with the emerging issues. Government says that more than 4 billion shillings has been disbursed to counties to build capacity in regards to the coronavirus disease. The weatherman has warned that rainfall will continue over several parts of the country. Rozongoi, NTV.
A widow in Kisauni, Mombasa County has baffled many after she was found cooking stones for her children because she had no food for them. Benina Kitsao has 8 children and is said to have prepared the meal in the guise of real food so that the young ones could stop crying, as she also waited for them to fall asleep. Kevin Motai visited her and brings us her story.
Miles away from Mombasa Central Business District, our search for Penina Kitsao brought us to Mlango Saba in Kisauni, where we were led to Mleji village. Here we found that 6-year-old mother of 8 in her 2-bedroom house with no water nor electricity. She says for the last 1 month life has been unbearable, and that she, believe it or not, cooked stones to make her children think that she was preparing dinner in hopes that they would fall asleep, which they did, perhaps out of sheer exhaustion.
Nilipofika usiku nasema ngojeni nampikia, lakini nikiasema ngoja nichemshe haya mawe kidogo kama watalala walale, angalau mimi nami nipate kupumzika kidogo. Ile wanaendelea kunihangaisha kulia, yule mdogo anasema nataka kula mama na sina kwa nyumba chakula.
One of the neighbors was alerted by her children who were crying for food, only to find a pot with stones boiling.
Nikaona watoto wako chini lakini hawana furaha. Nikakuta sufuria iko hapa chini kwa mawe lakini imefunikwa. Nikamwambia mmekula nini? Wakaniambia tuchakula. Hata leo watoto wanalia tu njaa. Nikamwambia umepikia nini? Akaniambia hata jana walilia mpaka mwisho. Nikaona wacha nichemshe mawe ni wadanganye kwamba chakula inaiva walale.
Hawa kubwa wanaelewa. Huyo mdogo ndiye haelewa. Akiniona nimebandika sufuria pale ataona kama napika chakula.
The neighbor then posted her story on the internet, and now she has been receiving some food items from well-wishers.
Kama mama mwenzake nilisikia uchungu sana. Pia mimi na watoto kama yeye Nikaamua kumtafuta.
Penina was widowed in June 2019 after her husband was attacked and killed by a criminal gang. She was 2 months pregnant with the lastborn who now doesn't understand why mommy has no food.
Ulipokuwa ukiweka mawe kwa jiko, hawakuona kwamba ni mawe?
Wale nimebandika tayari mwenyewe, nimetoka huku ndani na kisufuria nikabandika, hao wako hiru mwingine. Nikafinika. Nawaambia tulieni chakula kiendelea kuiva.
She used to depend on menial jobs like washing clothes for pay, but given the situation, those jobs are few and far between, especially because of her 6-month-old baby. She is among the people yet to benefit from free food distribution from the county government of Mombasa. Kevin Mutai, NTV.
Very sad state of affairs there. Now they say failing to plan is planning to fail. Although no one would have anticipated a global health crisis of this magnitude of COVID-19, some nations have always set aside emergency budgets in anticipation of such times. Kenya, unfortunately, is not among them. And now we are reappropriating funds and appealing to the good graces of mankind to survive these times.
The pictures of disasters that have visited the country over the years, repeatedly and unfortunately in some cases predictably. In some instances, solutions have not been put in place and fixing it when it's broken, the modus operandi.
We always have in our budget an emergency fund of 5 billion shillings, meaning what we have always anticipated, things like drought, things like floods, earthquakes, this fund is always available. We have never, as a government, estimated this level of spread and size of emergency.
The emergency the Cabinet Secretary speaks of here is the COVID-19 pandemic, which has presented an unprecedented pack of problems, from healthcare to fading livelihoods and on to limited or no access to basics. This has led to the numerous calls for support for the vulnerable, even by the government, calls which will go on.
And we hope that you don't mind if we become those people who are always coming around for seconds.
The state has sought to allow for pooling of resources through the Kenya COVID-19 Emergency Response Fund, which has raised just under 1.3 billion shillings in cash and kind. But will the implementation start soon?
But at the same time, government is unable to respond quickly, largely because they need for the new fund that has been created for COVID-19 to be approved by Parliament before they can start to fit in money and also to approve how to spend that cash.
The pandemic is increasingly exposing the shortcomings of the country and its management and bringing to light gaps in decision making. For instance, the debt situation, which has been a point of concern for a significant part of the Jubilee administration's reign, leaves Kenya in a sticky situation if more resources are to be channeled into an emergency fund. This is linked to Kenya's spending being far greater than its income, meaning that there is less money available to attend to the emergency.
Government obligations to pay debts may override, may suddenly overwhelm how much resources are available, and that means that the flexibility of the budget is reduced and you're not able to shift budgets from one side in order to use them for the emergency.
Creating an emergency fund for Kenya is solving one problem by creating a debt problem. When once you create a debt problem, the only way you can repay debt is either borrowing more or taxing the population or taxing the economy, which will lead you to reduced income and reduced disposable income.
The public wage bill has been a steep climb, whose flattening has proved to be an even steeper one.
And one of those weaknesses that we have is the huge cost that we have of running government, both levels of government, because majority of our budget goes to paying recurrent expenditure.
With strained resources and less than ideal systems, a great deal of adjusting will have to be done, and it will be uncomfortable.
It might mean even reviewing the reallocation of funds. It might mean delaying or postponing some development projects.
Is the country running on empty? Yes, we are running on empty, and we've been running on empty for quite a while.
Okay, so that's the state of affairs in Kenya. And this morning, we're looking at our state of preparedness for disasters, not just in Kenya, but around the African continent. And I'll be joined by a number of people from different parts of this continent. Here in the studio, Elijah Muli, who is head of disaster management at the Red Cross. We also have in our fifth floor newsroom studio, David Owino, who is the Secretary General of Disaster Risk Reduction Association of Journalists, DIRAJ in short. And we'll also be joined by Dr. Eunice Gidai, a lecturer and psychologist from Kenyatta University. Our other guest on Skype is Sarah Kimani, who is the East Africa correspondent for the SABC. We will also be linking up with Boboloki Semele, a journalist in Gaborone, Botswana, joining us via Skype, and Tasso Zamba, a journalist in Abuja, Nigeria. We also have with us via Skype Malata Matthews, who is joining us via Skype from Lilongwe in Malawi. Let me start with you in Malawi, Malata. First of all, to begin with, before we just go into disaster, just give us a sense of the state of COVID in Malawi. Where are you at?
Sure. So, like many other African countries, Malawi has been really affected by this global pandemic. So, as we speak at the moment, we are looking at about 36 cases that have been registered. 7 of these have recovered, and we have now 26 active cases. And so far, we have registered 3 deaths across the country. So, we are not on a complete or full lockdown as a country, just because the moment the president announced the lockdown, some human rights groups and other interested people from the church community went to the courts to obtain an injunction stopping the government from implementing this lockdown. One of the reasons were that I think the lockdown did not come with a package that could really bail out or protect the vulnerable people, which is very key. So at the moment, a national response and preparedness plan has been launched. That was 2 weeks ago, and it requires about 157 billion kwacha to be implemented. And now I think as a country we have raised merely 20 to 25% of the required resources. So as we speak now, the key issues are to do with how do we protect the vulnerable people, how do we protect businesses, but at the same time also it's an issue of how does the government respond in the right way to this pandemic.
Okay, Malata, thank you. Stay on the line. I'll be coming back to you again for more conversation with you. Let me also turn to you, Sarah Kimani. Good morning and welcome to Your World.
Thank you for having me, Joseph.
Now, I know as part of your work reporting for the SABC, you travel to different parts of Africa. What would you say about how well we might have been prepared for COVID from the places that you've been to?
Well, I'll probably speak from the meeting that I had in January at the African Union. At that time, for the African Union and for the Africa CDC, COVID-19 looked like it was a Chinese problem, and it looked like it was so far from the rest of the continent. And only after we came back to our respective countries did we begin to feel the effects, as the first case was reported in Egypt. But what I also felt is that it was a lost opportunity, and I continue to feel that this was a lost opportunity for African leaders, because at that time, majority of them were gathered in the same room in Addis Ababa, and so they would have spoken with one voice, probably come up with solutions on how they will go forward once the disease knocks the door here on the continent. Because one of the things that they kept saying at that time was that it is just a matter of time, and COVID-19 will be on the African soil. But that particular meeting really concentrated so much on the theme of this year's African Union, which was silencing the guns. And the Africa CDC is the one that was left on the sidelines of the African Union Summit, addressing journalists on how countries should prepare or what should be done.
And at that meeting early on in January, was there any sense of a continental coordination of a crisis that could hit us, or did they, or was that discussion not had at all?
That discussion was not had at all in the main meeting, and it was not mentioned by any of the main leaders apart from Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General. The Africa CDC, however, had regular updates for the week that we were in Addis Ababa, just talking about what they as Africa CDC had done to prepare themselves. But individual countries seemed very, aloof. It didn't seem to them as if this was going to be an African issue very soon.
Okay, Sarah, stay with us. Let me come to you, David Owino. You're with us in the same building, but we're social distancing a whole floor. You were the Secretary General of this association that brings together journalists who specialize on disaster reporting, disaster risk and management. What is your sense about how Africa was prepared, or how well the continent was prepared for a disaster such as this?
All right, just picking up from what Sarah says, my understanding is that disasters happen way before we actually see them. And that's why Sarah talked about there was an opportunity for African countries, having all these leaders having been in the same room, to discuss how best they could address this pandemic, or in the event that it got to the continent. So really, and that's why we are talking about preparedness. So for me, there is a problem from the very beginning. The manner in which these events find us, it's like nothing like this has ever happened before, whether it's flooding, whether it's collapsed buildings in Nairobi, or landslides in the Rift Valley. They always happen like they have never happened before, and that is not just in Kenya, but also in the rest of, in many other countries in Africa. We are always caught unaware. We are always responding to a disaster, as opposed to being proactive and saying, can we put plans in place so that in case this happens, we could be better positioned. We are calling for money now, but what if we gave Kemri a little money in December and say, what is the ideal situation? What should we do just in case this virus gets to Kenya? What could we do as a country? So I think there are many things that we could have done much earlier.
Oh, okay, David, I'll come into the details of what we need to do as a solution. Let me go back to Malawi, Malata. You've had a few disasters in recent years in Southern Africa, the flooding situation, cyclones and so on. The last major one that you experienced either in Malawi or Southern Africa, how was it handled?
Sure. So you're quite right. In the past 5 decades, I've had about 19 major flooding events, and including drought incidents. So the heavy one was in 2019. That was around March, when we had the cyclone Idai. In terms of how we handled the situation, I would say it's the same story of Africa. I think it was really a big problem, mainly because of the way we respond to the issues. Our preparedness, I think, is still a problem to a larger extent. Firstly, I think the early warning systems were also tested big time. I think most of them did not work as expected, despite huge investments that have been done by several players and development partners to make sure they build the country's capacity in the utilization of early warning systems when these disasters are about to strike. But at the same time, you're also looking at the health system. When disasters like this occur, we had people living in the camps for weeks, for months, and then you're looking at the sanitation issues. You've got issues of cholera outbreaks that usually come in. So it's like you're always in a firefighting mode all the times. And I believe that with the plans that they have always been in place, we could have done better. The key issue in Malawi, just like many other countries, is implementation. We have proper policies in place, but implementation of these disaster policies has been a major issue.
Okay.
So I would say that in the past, we haven't had a good scenario, more people dying, and I'm sure you can reduce the number of people that are dying. But you're also looking at the economic losses in general. They have been huge indeed, and we need to take down these figures in line with the Sendai framework, which is a global blueprint for reducing these disasters in most of the countries.
Okay,
now,
okay, Malata, I'll come back to you. If you hold
Okay.
on to that point for a moment, let me switch to my guest here in the studio. This is Elijah Muli, who is the head of disaster management at the Red Cross. Good morning and welcome to your world.
Good morning, Joseph.
Now, in Kenya, when we talk disasters, we associate them with Red Cross because you seem to be one of the key people that respond. That's a good thing for you, but it's not a good thing for this country. It shows that, where is our own infrastructure?
Yeah, that is true, Joseph. But as you know, the Kenya Red Cross is a humanitarian organization, and we are driven by humanitarian imperatives. So we will have to move out and save the Kenyans.
Okay. Looking back, we've had quite a few, from terrorism attacks here in Kenya to flooding. Now even before COVID, we're already trying to deal with locusts. We have flooding that has come in. The disasters, they come in with their cousins, their sisters, and everything else. What would you say about our state of preparedness as we speak now as a country?
Okay, well, we are still dealing with locust. It's not like we are not dealing with the locust. We are still dealing with the locust. We have floods at the moment in the state of play. We have COVID-19, as you have already reported very well. Yeah, so we are dealing with, I would say, a very complex emergency of all myriad of these disasters, all of them together. So I want to say and agree largely with a lot of the colleagues who are on this show that preparedness remains a critical issue for us as a country and for us also as a continent. And this is the very high time that we need to take this matter seriously. It is very important for governments, for humanitarian actors, and everyone in this particular space to start working in the upstream, to start thinking, planning. Maybe we're not doing enough.
From what we've had before in terms of other disasters that have hit Kenya, what lessons have we learned generally? What are some of the recurring themes in the previous disasters?
Well, it is very clear that, and again, agreeing very much with the colleagues calling in, we are very much reactive, and the state of preparedness is something that has not been given the right focus as it is. So what we have learned is that if we can invest a little bit in the thinking before, in putting in systems before, in sharpening our tools before, probably the impact of what we continue to see every other disaster event happens would be much, much lower and would probably save this country a big deal, looking at the prospects for prosperity for future.
Serekemani, to you the same question in terms of your observations about how Kenya itself has handled other previous disasters.
Well, especially weather-related disasters, which we now know will happen almost every rainy season, and which will be followed by a drought. I feel like the country is always caught flat-footed, and even after all these warnings that come prior, we still are acting as if we are not ready. For example, the country is the headquarters of the IGAD Climate Prediction Center. The Climate Prediction Center gives updates every 2 weeks. It gave reports about locusts when they were in Somalia and they were coming down all the way to Kenya. So the country had ample time to prepare for that. Now, just before the flood started, both the weatherman here, the Met Department, and again the IGAD Climate Prediction Center, the World Meteorological Organization, have all been issuing warnings and saying the East African region will expect floods at this and this time. The least the country could do is, one, prepare food for those who will be affected, and also probably even have centers permanent centers where we know these areas are prone to flooding, and so this is the area that we will move our people to. If we plan early, then we should not be always looking flat-footed, but also seeking outside help. We have experts in the country, and I imagine every time this happens, they must feel very bad because they always prepare the country in terms of warnings about these disasters, but our response has not changed for 20 years that I have been a journalist.
Okay, Malata, in Malawi, now, whenever Southern Africa experiences these disasters, especially flooding and other natural disasters, help seems to come from South Africa in way of relief and helicopters coming in to the rescue. What is Malawi currently doing to put in place structures that, in terms of its own response to disasters? What's the situation?
I get
Malata, can you hear me now? So, Malata, I just want to know what's Malawi currently doing in terms of, sorry, I can see, we'll come back to you in a moment, Malata. But first, as the attention of most of Uganda is centered on COVID-19 and the efforts to prevent the pandemic from spreading, local leaders and environmental experts in the Elgon region are worried about the current heavy rains. The fear is that they might lead to natural disasters like landslides and floods, which the government might not readily respond to. Similar concerns are also being voiced on the opposite side of Uganda in the Rwenzori region, where farmers in Kasese are suffering losses after heavy rains and subsequent floods destroyed their crops. The affected communities are calling for a quick response to what they consider a disaster waiting to happen.
Local leaders and environmental experts in the Elgon region are worried of looming disasters like landslides and floods that are likely to occur due to the increasing heavy rains in the region. The leaders are also worried that government is now paying a lot of attention to the coronavirus pandemic and any disaster is likely to take them by surprise.
And that's our hope, that maybe if they are looking at coronavirus, they will also slightly look at what is going to happen during this rainy season, especially in Mount Elgon zone. And even those flat areas where there are floods, you will realize that water in Lake Victoria has swollen up. That is an indicator already that the heavy rains are doing a lot of harm.
Some stakeholders say, despite the likely disasters, very little is being done to prepare the communities.
It is raining heavily and every day. Likewise, in all the ranges neighboring the mountain, we are receiving really quite a lot of rains. The only unfortunate thing is that we appear as if we are not very prepared for these rains. Our communities traditionally, they have engaged in intensive clearing of the bushes to cultivate for the season. But we have not given them adequate information earlier on to record that whenever it rains heavily like this, we really suffer from the landslides and mudslides in this region.
Sarah Bisikwa, the Natural Resource Officer for Manafwa District, says the local leaders have begun sensitizing people on the dangers the heavy rains pose.
My advice is, as usual, we've sensitized our communities to be very alert and say that in case they sense any danger coming, they move off from the dangerous zones.
After previous disasters, government had resolved to relocate some of the more vulnerable communities, but only a small number have since been resettled.
Since the other project of construction of houses takes time, and in the course of construction, another rainy season comes in and it causes havoc. We thought maybe government would change the format or the procedure of resettlement and maybe come down to assess those living at high risk and they are given money to resettle themselves where they want to resettle.
Meanwhile, across the country in the Rwenzori region, farming communities are beginning to count losses after torrential rains and flooding have destroyed acres of farmland. Despite being on opposite ends of the country, the problems facing these communities are a sign of a potential disaster that might be made worse by the fact that most resources have been tied up in the COVID-19 response.
People have beans they were expecting within 2 weeks to harvest their beans, but they have now gone. You can even see. And we don't know what to do. So we do ask the government or request the government if they can put any method, and they broke that water for us, we are okay. but we don't need that food of corona people water. No, we are comfortable with our food, but except this water, it has now become a problem.
Despite being on opposite ends of the country, the problems facing these communities are a sign of a potential disaster that might be made worse by the fact that most resources have been tied up in the COVID-19 response.
Okay, so that's the situation in Uganda. Let's move over to Malawi. Malata, whenever there are disasters in Southern Africa, it's South Africa that comes to the rescue. But what is a country like Malawi doing at the moment in terms of building its capacity to respond? What's the state at the moment?
Can't get you properly, I think. Maybe you can take that question again, if you don't mind.
I just want to find out how Malawi is doing in terms of building its capacity to respond to disasters. What's the situation?
Sure. Thank you very much indeed. Actually, what is happening is that all the development partners are putting their resources together. I think firstly, we begin with the COVID-19 issue. I think the interest at the moment is to make sure that our health facilities have got the right equipment, the health personnel have been trained to have the relevant skills, but also increase the capacity of the testing centers. Currently, we have only 4 testing centers, and we have tested less than 1,000 people so far, which is quite worrisome in as far as most of the people are concerned here. There have been efforts to make sure that each and every district has the capacity to test, but I think we are not yet there because we do not have adequate testing equipment. So that's a major challenge at the moment. So the other issue has been to do with the risk allowances. The health workers were staying away from unsafe working places. That's what we're calling them, because they did not have the PPEs and all that. So they were on strike for about 2 or 3 days, and this also affected the whole response to the pandemic. So I think at the moment the issues are equipment, but also the welfare of the health workers that are in the front line fighting this pandemic. In general terms, responding to disasters in Malawi, but also mitigating the risk, I think is a priority. It has also been included in the country's development blueprint. We call it the Malawi Growth and Development Strategy. So we have the National Resilience Strategy, but also we have got the draft Disaster Risk Management Bill, which authorities are trying to push to Parliament to make sure it's approved so that it's able to fill some of the gaps that are there. So I would think that in terms of the policy framework, we are not bad, but if we are going to improve on coordination and implementation, I'm sure we can register a different story.
And finally, Malata, briefly, what kind of worst-case scenario is Malawi expecting in terms of COVID? Has the government given any projections?
Yeah, so at the moment, there are accountability issues. People are losing trust with the way the government is managing COVID-19 resources. There have been issues of cabinet ministers pocketing allowances for trips that could have been avoided. They've been moving about the country in the name of monitoring visits, and this really did not go down well with most of Malawians. They really protested this, and if this continues, I'm sure it's going to bring more problems. Now, the worst scenario is that at the moment, people are not happy with the numbers in as far as the number of people tested so far is concerned. So people are not just too sure if really indeed the country has got 36 cases or we have got more and we are yet to know. So if that's the case, it means that the virus could be ahead of so many actions that the government is doing, and that is going to be really dangerous. Right now, our treatment centers do not have adequate beds. Our quarantine institutions are not really ready. We have got very few people that are going on institutional quarantine. Most of the people are on self-quarantine, and that raises a lot of issues, and very few are complying to this. And the lockdown issue, which has been very controversial in Malawi, up to the courts getting involved in this matter, is also very tricky, because right now government cannot implement some of the measures that are needed, tough measures that are needed to contain the spread of the virus, because the court has stopped them in the name of asking the government to make sure the poor but also the vulnerable are protected. So the worst scenario is that the government at the moment is not able to do the lockdown or implement some of the measures, much as we have had assurances from the president that regardless of whatever is happening, he will do whatever he can to protect most of the Malawians in this country.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Malata, for joining us this morning from Lilongwe in Malawi. Have a good day and keep safe. David Owino, coming back, we just saw that situation in Uganda, flooding. Rains will always come. There will be flooding, sadly. This has been happening all through the decades, and yet we're never ready for them.
Yeah, I think, again, let's take it back to the beginning. And one of the things that I think, one of the reasons I think we keep losing is the fact that we do not invest in understanding the kind of risks that we are predisposed to, so that we are better organized to deal with them. If you see countries that are managing their risks or their disasters better, they are countries that invest in understanding these risks way ahead of time. For example, you could come up with a model that says 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, we expect that if all factors remain constant, then these are the kind of flooding or the kind of drought that we can expect in Kenya. And for that reason, we are putting these measures in advance. We are investing in agriculture in this different location to ensure that when this happens, then our people are safe and their livelihoods are safe. If you look at the situation in Uganda, just look at those images. Why do landslides happen? They happen because of wrong development. It's a physical planning issue. So people are living in places where they should not live, and they degrade the environment. There are no trees left on the hillside. Water saturates the soil, and because soil has no roots that are holding it down, it simply slides off and kills people. So what if we better understood that these are the areas that are at risk and could lead to such things, and these are the risks that we are predisposed to. So then governments should be better organized. But that also goes into understanding the kind of people, the kind of citizens that we have. If I look at the current COVID situation that we have in Kenya, Treasury told us in January, when they were developing the draft budget policy statement, that 10 million Kenyans live in slums. Do we see that they really understand that 10 million Kenyans live in slums in the kind of response that they are developing towards coronavirus? So it shows that we are not organized. So you understand risk, and then you begin to govern it to manage it in an organized manner. You have institutions, you create policy, and you address it in a way that everybody is safe.
David, thank you. Let me come back to David Tumuli, Elijah here. You were nodding as David was speaking there. What was going through your mind?
No, I'm looking at the state of preparedness from the parameters which Mr. Owino is bringing on board. That is from the policy framework, from the infrastructure itself, and also from the software, the population that are at risk. So one important thing is that we must look at the policy framework for disaster preparedness, and then even before we invest in the infrastructure for taking the preparedness measures to the next level.
You talk about policy. Let me ask you about Red Cross. We've had locusts. We have floods going on. What are you projecting might happen in the next few months in Kenya?
My guess is as good as yours. Here we are talking about the ultimate impact of interaction of a myriad of emergencies, and if you put the impact of the coronavirus together with the impact of the locust and what we are talking about with the flooding, the ultimate effect of this will be greater probably than the 3 or the 4 of these emergencies.
What kind of impact though?
We are talking about...
is it hunger? Is it famine? Is it...
Yes, we are talking about political, economic, and the social impact. For instance, we are talking about people going without food. right now, where there is a lot of, say, cessation of productive actions. We see people not working. My colleague has talked about over 10 million people who live in the informal settlement. Apart from just that, these are people whose mainstay, life mainstay.
So there'll be a lot of people who are hungry, in other words.
Correct.
And are you preparing for that kind of eventuality? It is a disaster when people are hungry.
This is what the conversation need to go to. We are getting ready to respond to that.
Yeah.
And Joseph, one other thing that must be very clear right now is that we are like a country at war. During times of war, it is not the time to sharpen the instruments of preparedness.
Yes.
Right now, we are in a response mode.
Right.
And all efforts are aimed at responding and reducing the impact of what is at stake right now.
Okay.
Yes.
Muli, I'll come back to you. David, again back to you in terms of even looking ahead. It's going to be a really tough few months ahead, even after COVID is over. What is your assessment in terms of humanitarian efforts, in terms of a disaster? What are you anticipating yourself as someone who spends a lot of time reporting on these issues?
Yeah, yesterday I was walking along Jogo Road in the evening, and I think that the scene that I saw there paints a very good picture of what we can expect as a country. So Jogo Road in the evening, people are literally running, and you'd think that Kenyans are taking this athletics thing too seriously. But it's because these are, number one, people who cannot afford to stay at home. They have to work every day because they have to earn their income every day. Number two, they cannot even afford to get public transport home, which is supposed to be the cheapest. They cannot afford to get it home. And there's a curfew to beat. So you want to run to Dandora, you want to run to Kayole, you want to run from Nairobi's industrial area. You run home so that you beat the curfew. So what we are saying is it would be very wrong for us to think that the day that government announces that, hey guys, you can reopen your businesses, that we will be back, the economy will roar back again. We are wrong to think like that. So for a country where we are talking about 36% of the population being poor, 10 million of them living in informal settlements, we need to think about policies that target the poor people, interventions that target the poor people, the most vulnerable in our society. How are we going to protect them? And some of them did not even look so vulnerable a few months ago. Yesterday on NTV, you're talking about jobs that are being lost. Up to 134,000 have been lost already because of this pandemic. You are asking people that they cannot leave Nairobi, for example. Think about someone who has already spent all their savings and is losing a job and has to stay in Nairobi, and 90% of urban dwellers in Kenya are renting houses, 90%. So this is why people are beginning to come up with innovative ways to exit the city. It's not like Kenyans are careless or Kenyans are indisciplined. No, it's a government that is not understanding the disposition of its people and therefore not being responsive to the needs of these people at a time when they need their government the most.
And so, David, if you were to offer free consultancy services to the government of the Republic of Kenya, what are the 3-4 key things they need to have in place, A, to take care of the effects of COVID, post-COVID, and also prepare for other future disasters, which, so hunger is going to be one of them?
Okay, right now, I think South Africa has shown us a good example. And their stimulus package that was announced by President Ramaphosa is quite comprehensive compared to what we announced here. So we need to be a lot more serious about the kind of the stimulus package that we are talking about. And I will repeat that it needs to target the most vulnerable in our society, because then it means if one disaster leaves them poorer and there is a next one coming, which is hunger, then we have a bigger issue. Number two is we can also borrow a few lessons from Sierra Leone. This is a country that battled the Ebola virus for 2 years with their little resources. What did they learn? They learned that government cannot be the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit in a time of disasters. They do not know anything. They do not know everything. They cannot monopolize response and monopolize the narrative. And so you need to come up with a structure in which other stakeholders can come in and play the roles in which they are experts in.
And David, just on that Sierra Leone case, we know that the young people who have had the experience of countering Ebola have actually, taken over the role of leading the initiatives of the community to prevent even sort of COVID-19. In other words, this is, as you say, it's not something that the government does. You need to involve the community and let them own the issue and lead it.
Very true, Warongo. When Sierra Leone started dealing with Ebola virus, they realized that they needed the chiefdoms. In Sierra Leone, chiefdoms are still functional. So they contacted the chiefdoms and involved them in the structure of addressing or responding to Ebola virus. So these chiefdoms are trusted by the community. They have a very good working relationship. They are appointed by these communities. And so it's these chiefdoms that brought in the youth, so that you do not need police to stand on the road and tell people, do not move past this time. The people just do it automatically. And what Sierra Leone has done today is that they have simply inherited the structure of 2014 to 2016 Ebola virus to manage COVID-19. And it's working quite well, including an emergency a public health emergency operations center, which is a multi-stakeholder platform. Here we're only seeing Ministry of Health working alone. But we do have certain, other, clusters or departments or people who could be very valuable to what we are doing, but we are not.
Okay, David, thank you. Thank you very much indeed for those points. Our government, I'm sure, has duly noted, and will be checking out other experiences from around the continent. But first, here's what you've been saying to us on our hashtag New Normal. Ali Morandu Charo, no, in other words, do you think we are taking enough action to prepare for cushion ourselves against the effects of COVID-19? No, I think we're not well prepared, because how come some infected Kenyans taken to quarantine at their own cost? What is the government providing to Kenyans to make sure they are safe, if even face masks they can't provide? Thank you, Ali, for that. Another comment here from Joseph. You say, yes, no, if we can act quickly this time using the right measures, including lockdown where necessary, we can cushion ourselves. Otherwise, if we wait long for the virus to escalate and our facilities to be overwhelmed, it might be difficult. And another comment from Baraka, you say, we are prepared, testing 300 people per day, of which 10 turn out positive. It will take us 100 years to test all 47 million Kenyans. On the other hand, we're spending 1 billion per day with daily updates. Wow, okay. And this is Abu Adnan. You say, a big no. We're not too sure even the credibility of this thing. Why can't the government come out clearly about COVID-19? Why are they taking advantage of our vulnerability? Let me say, as a Kenyan, we're tired because we don't trust anybody. Okay? We hear you. Mbada Mwema, how now? We don't even have isolation centers that can hold more than 1,000 people. The only people prepared are politicians. I believe they've looted enough for their families in case they go. Okay, wow. Some tough words for our politicians. Wale George, definitely life must go on after COVID-19. Dynasties will fall and many more will rise too. Now the comment is from Kwaniko Mwaniki. We ain't prepared. So long as donations have been privatized, it's man situation, question mark, exclamation, and all of that. Okay, thank you so much for your comments. And David, we can let you go now as we take a break. Thank you for joining us, David.
Have you shared your bongo points with someone who needs them? Remember to help a friend or anyone in need to buy food using your bongo points. Stay at home, but still stay together with your loved ones and friends using bongo points. Share your story or video of how you've helped a fellow Kenyan to our FB page NTV Kenya, Twitter page at NTV Kenya, Instagram at NTV Kenya, SMS 20686 or our WhatsApp number 0745 925 002. Basic protective measures as guided by the World Health Organization. Clean hands frequently with soap and clean water. Cover nose and mouth when coughing and sneezing with a tissue or flexed elbow. Avoid close contact 1 meter or 3 feet with anyone with cold or flu-like symptoms. If you have fever, cough and difficulty breathing, seek medical care early. Avoid raw or uncooked animal products. Help the world put an end to the spread of respiratory diseases by sharing this message with a friend. Message brought to you by Sour Herbal Family Bath Soap.
Are you struggling with how to help your child with their math problems at home? Introducing the Mwalimu Plus e-tutor with personalized learning support for your child. The app is free for class 4 and 6 and class 3, 5, 7 and 8 pay 50% or pay just 5 bob a day. Plus an online tutor to review and assign your child work. Download the Mwalimu Plus app on Google Play, register and watch your child's performance improve.
My name is Colin Sierra and I'd like to take this opportunity to wish my fellow Kenyans peace and safety during this difficult time as we fight the coronavirus pandemic. Please do follow the instructions given by our President, His Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, and the Ministry of Health as we combat the pandemic. Wash your hands thoroughly with soap and clean running water, or use sanitizers where necessary. Keep your environment clean. Stay at home and avoid unnecessary movement. Take the necessary precautions to keep yourself and your family safe. And to my fellow athletes, if necessary, do train in isolation and keep safe. We shall overcome this pandemic. God bless you and God bless Kenya.
I tried to, do the gymnastics I was used to as a photographer. I want to climb up somewhere. But when I did that, I came down with part of that wall.
The prevalence of obesity amongst adults is at an all-time high, especially in women.
Whenever you're taking rice, you're taking almost an equivalent of the same teaspoons of sugar.
We try to understand why and how this can be managed.
Big fat farewell. Kwa heri mafuta. Mafuta tuachie gari.
Kenya's economy is in uncharted waters. A healthcare emergency has become an unprecedented economic crisis, characterized by job losses, pay cuts, company closures, the near collapse of the SME and informal sectors, disrupted supply chains, and deserted markets as consumers stay away in fear of possible infection. Revenues are depressed, and overall, the economy is taking a massive hit. Various measures, including a raft of tax cuts, increased cash transfers, and loan repayment holidays, have been introduced with the aim of mitigating some of these challenges. What do these measures mean to Kenyans? And what more can or needs to be done to further alleviate their suffering? On Thursday, 30th April 2020, the Nation Media Group will hold a live virtual Nation Leadership Forum starting 7:30 p.m. on NTV. we will be unpacking the economic challenges COVID-19 presents, the various measures introduced to deal with these challenges, and what needs to be done to lead Kenya on to economic recovery. Nation Leadership Forum, engaging society, impacting the nation.
Okay, Serekemani, let me turn to you briefly. Now, your work for the SABC takes you to different countries in the African continent. When you've been to places where they're responding to disasters, what kind of response have you seen in different places? What can we as a nation learn from other African countries?
What I have seen in the countries that I've covered, and I'll start with neighboring Uganda, the Bududa landslides in 2018, and then again last year, 2019, Cyclone Idai last year, I managed to cover a bit of that. What I have seen is that as a continent, we always seem to be caught flat-footed, even was for a country like Uganda that now in the areas of Bududa, they know that this landslide will happen. It seems to be the same response. It seems to be people will be caught by the landslide. They will move out briefly. Some will die, unfortunately. And then once the rain stops, they will all go back there. It was the same thing in Mozambique. The cyclone Idai did not actually start in Africa. We had seen signs that Africa would be affected, and the warnings have been there. For me, I want now that we look inside. Let us look at ourselves as the media. For the 20 years that I've been in the media, I've covered landslides, I have covered droughts, I've covered even famines, and now cyclones. So the severity of the climate change and the weather and the changing weather patterns is becoming clearer every year. But what we have not done as the media is we have not, after the disaster is done, we have not probably gone ahead of the disaster and reported on issues of climate change, because we are the only ones who probably hold the greatest key to educating our communities. And in this case, I think community radio stations have a role to play, so that we start talking about this is the reason why a government is telling you to move out of this place at this time. For now, we should have started stories earlier. Even though we have COVID, we should have had stories that go back to the areas that we usually have floods, for example, in Kenya, and started reporting and telling people, look, the water levels will rise at this and this point, and bringing out those stories and saying, the last time we were here, these people are here, a flood happened, they are now back. They are not seeing the dangers. And also evaluate and see, why don't they see, or why don't they value their lives as much as would imagine they would, considering last year they lost 5 people to that disaster.
Now, Sarah, there is also the issue of options. These people may have nowhere else to go, so they'll move out temporarily. They have to come back because they need to feed families, they need to look after themselves. So it's also livelihoods. So they have no options. They would rather take the risk, but at least live for today.
Indeed, and that is why we as the media need to speak for them. They have no voices. The lady who is boiling stones at the coast of Kenya doesn't have that voice, unless we amplify her voice and tell the government, you told us that you have set aside 2 billion Kenya shillings to give to the vulnerable, but look, people are boiling stones, and this is one of them. Where is the money? When we start questioning government, when we start holding government to account, then things move. Take, for example, and some people think probably I'm being biased and liking Museveni too much, but he locked down the country at a time when Kenya, the Kenyan leadership was so scared of locking the country in terms of COVID-19, because they said, our people work in the informal sector, what will they eat? We have seen Uganda being able to offer an option, being able to provide food to the vulnerable. Rwanda has done the same thing. So it is about holding governments to account, but also going back to where I started. We have our neighbors, we have cases to compare with. We as the media need to start asking, what is this that, for example, South Africa is doing so well that as we speak now, They have screened 2 million people and tested 600,000 people. We have Uganda testing 1,000 truck drivers every day, and these truck drivers are coming from across the borders. The minute the media starts not calling ourselves Kenya, the biggest economy in East and Central Africa, and instead putting that tag of the biggest economy in East and Central Africa against what we are doing or what we are not doing, then it starts making sense. And government then knows that we are not just singing their song. We've been singing a song of Kenya has the capacity to test 37,000 people for COVID-19 every day. And yesterday I asked, why are we not testing? There were people in that press conference. Why didn't they ask CAS Mwangangi, why are we not testing? The minute we stop singing the song and start holding governments to account, then even the civil society will now see that they have no chance to go to bed with the government. The public will also see that we are the fourth estate.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Sir Kimani, for joining us. Sir Kimani of the SABC, have a good morning. Now, Murang'a County Government has been fumigating all social places as part of measures to contain the spread of the new coronavirus. 98 people were placed in quarantine in Murang'a County after they came into contact with people visiting from overseas.
And closed all salons and barber shops. They have also set up water points all over town and distributed free sanitizers in the fight against the coronavirus. Today,
Interior CS Fred Matiang'i insists that the ongoing curfew should be adhered to and all travel restrictions obeyed at all times. The CS warned those Kenyans trying to beat the system by using panya routes. Matiang'i said the government would facilitate counties to enforce the government's directives to enhance preparedness in combating the coronavirus.
Move to the higher ground, period. But of course, if it gets to a point where we feel certain populations are in danger and they're not moving as fast as we want, that's where we have engaged the chiefs, assistant chiefs. We will use local structures that don't have to use force, because those people will talk to them in a way they will understand.
Qatar has sent 2 cargo planes with medical supplies from its capital Doha to Rwanda and Algeria, which are among several countries that are due to receive medical aid to help them fight the coronavirus pandemic. Close to a half of the 47 county governments have either finished or are in the process of completing their preparations for the fight against the coronavirus. Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe told a Senate ad hoc committee on COVID-19 that funds for the fight against the virus had already been disbursed to the counties. Kagwe, who appeared before the committee alongside his PS, told the senators that the regional government had received funding both from the national government as well as donors, including Danida, the World Bank as well. Kagwe says the funding is aimed at containing the spread of the virus to the regions as well as managing the already recorded cases. The committee, which is chaired by Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja, is expected to table its report before the Senate next Tuesday.
Each area, one hospital that is going to be the COVID hospital. So, for example, the reason I refer to Marsabit is Marsabit has already done that. They already have a COVID hospital. Isiolo has already done it. Isiolo has got a very elaborate COVID hospital. Mombasa has already done it.
Okay, now let me come back to you, Elijah Muli, in the studio. The discussion there with Sarah Kimani about these repeated disasters, and we know what the outcome is going to be. We know what the result will be. Why is it, we talk about sometimes of a stubborn government, but what about the population themselves who move out of a dangerous area and then move right back and then face the same trouble again in due season?
Yes, I agree with Sarah very much, and this is where we look at collective action. We look at what is the space of everyone in this scenario. What is the space for the local mwananchi in this? What is the space for the journalists? What is the space for everyone else? So what this means is that everyone, the private sector, the civil society, the government, the common mwananchi has a role to play. For us to be able to win against this this calamity, everyone will have to play their role and play it very well. And especially for this particular case, when we are talking about defeating the spread, the local infection that is currently the state of play of the coronavirus in this country, the local mwananchi needs to again be educated. They need to be brought to the surface of understanding what their actions are and what the contribution of their action would be towards reduction or increasing this pandemic.
Now, I know as Red Cross, you work closely with government in terms of coordinating either response to disasters or even preparedness. What would you say about the capacity and the level of coordination in government for this kind of disasters?
What I want to say is that, and it has already been said, what the different arms of government, especially the county governments, are doing. We are seeing them taking a lot of initiatives, taking a lot of, reprogramming, their way of doing things to be able to accommodate the response that is ongoing. We've seen the setup of hospitals. I think setting up hospitals is not an easy task. So many platforms have been established, coordination platforms. They have been set up at national and also at the county.
What are the challenges? What are the gaps?
Well, right now we are dealing with a new disease. We are dealing with a new entrant into the burden of diseases in the country. Currently, the challenge is still around, the kind of information that is available, the prevention mechanisms that are there. Is something that needs a different approach in terms of response, in terms of messaging, in terms of even the human workforce. For instance, we know at the lowest tier, we have the community health workers. They need reorientation, they need retraining, they need to be properly packaged to be able to handle the challenges that come with the COVID-19. So right now, there is that part, and also again, there's also the issue of resources. I think it has been mentioned very many times that resources that are meant or that were earlier planned for different things now have to be reprogrammed to be able to handle this. So there's also the issue of resources
but also how they're used, whether they're used for the purpose for which they were designed in terms of responding to the disaster.
Yeah, that is one, but what I can say is that at the moment, all systems are towards the eradication of coronavirus control, and of course we have also seen a lot of actions in terms of ensuring that what is already approved by the different structures that are put in place for oversight are also observed.
Now, we've got a multiplicity of disasters right now. The locusts have not completely gone away. We have a flooding situation, and then we've got COVID-19. What does that mean in terms of impact on the population?
That means that we are dealing with a complex emergency. We are dealing with a complex humanitarian emergency. From an health perspective, from an economic perspective, we are looking at livelihoods being impacted. It has been reported that thousands of people have lost their jobs. We know there are those who are on hand-to-mouth mode. where they work today, they get what they get, and that is what they use to feed themselves. So the impact is multifaceted. It's cutting across all sectors. There is no single sector right now that is not facing the downtime of productivity and output.
And so, as a humanitarian organization, what are you preparing for? To respond with food, to respond with moving people, to respond with medical or a health response? Because you've got a lot going on at the moment.
As I've mentioned earlier, we are dealing with a complex situation, and for us, it's all systems go.
What does that actually mean? All systems go.
All systems goes. It means that the response plan, is multifaceted. It is looking at reduction of the COVID-19 spread. That means there is continuous investment in terms of awareness, training, and reaching out to the local Mwananchi with regard to what they need to do, and at the same time addressing the aspects of livelihood. Right now, of course, in partnership with the government structures on the ground, we are doing mapping of all informal settlement people in all the urban areas, to be able to ensure that we know. I think the most important thing is understanding the risk, and also looking at how do we address this particular issue. And of course, also on the other aspect of health systems strengthening, looking at the space where we play, which is basically at the grassroots, ensuring that our community health workers are prepared and packaged to be able to plug in and support.
Okay, Bonamuli, thank you. Now let's go all the way to Habaroni in Botswana. Babaloki Semele, good morning and welcome to Your World. If you can.
Good morning, and yeah, I can hear you.
You can hear me well.
Good morning, and
now just
thanks a lot for inviting.
Before we talk about disasters, can you give us a little bit of an update in terms of the COVID-19 situation in Botswana? What's the situation? Are you on lockdown?
Okay, Botswana is actually on what we call extreme social distancing, because when the president addressed the nation on the 30th of March, we actually had a case on the 31st of March. But when he addressed the nation, he told us that he's actually not implementing lockdown, but people have been referring to it as lockdown. But the president has said that he's implementing what he called the extreme social distancing, where people who are traveling within, movement is going to be actually restricted to essential service providers or people who are accessing the essential services, but they will need a special COVID-19 permit to be able to access that services. And the extreme social distancing was actually started on the 2nd of April and ended on the 30th of April, which means it ends today. But 2 days ago, the president addressed the nation, and he said he's actually increasing the social distancing by the extreme social distancing by 1 week, which means now from tomorrow until the 7th of May, we will still be having the extreme social distancing. The laws are still the same. You still need a special permit to be able to move from your house. And then from the 7th to the 14th of May, he's going to relax the rules. And that will be also depending on the COVID-19 cases. As of now, we've had about 6,548 people they've tested. Of this number, 6,525 people came out negative. We have only 23 positive cases, and as of yesterday, we had 5 recoveries. And of this 23 cases, we had only 1 death, which means now we have 17 cases, active cases, owing to the 5 recoveries that were announced yesterday.
Okay, Samuel, let's stay on the line. I want to go into that in a little more detail, but let me also turn to Dr. Eunice Gidai, who is a psychologist and a lecturer at Kenyatta University. Good morning and welcome to Your World.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, a constant theme that's emerging throughout this pandemic is the state of our mental health. You've got people still stuck in houses. There are now reports of some men who look for any excuse to flee from the wife and go to work or go to other places. What goes on in the human mind when you are faced with uncertainty and you are put in a space that you're not normally used to, that kind of confinement?
Let me just say that the situation we are in right now is really a very uncertain time for us all. You wake up not knowing whether you'll be safe by the end of the day, and it's a kind of situation where I'm only safe when you're safe. It really does create a lot of uncertainty, and it's this kind of uncertainty that makes us start feeling like you're not so sure about the world, you're suspicious of the other person, you stigmatize the other person, or you kind of live through psychological distress of everyday life. Unfortunately, for mental health, it's not easy for you to see it on the face. It's not like economic crisis. It's not when someone when someone is broke and they can't buy food. It's not like when someone has got other symptoms of sickness. It can go so mild for so long, and you're not able to see it, and so it becomes really a big problem.
So what are the signs? As you say, it's invisible, but what are the signs that everything is not okay?
Sorry, ask that again.
I'm saying, so it's invisible, you say. What are the signs for such a person to show that actually everything is not okay?
You can tell everything is not okay when someone starts isolating themselves. I know right now you're talking about social distancing, but really that should not be the right word. It should be physical distancing, while we should actually be having social closeness and social connectivity. So you may find people starting to isolate. Others may start developing anxiety, like what we call generalized anxiety for every day. It's like you want to find out everything that is going on. You're always on your phone, you're always on WhatsApp, you're always on the checking out news, and it's not like you're able to sleep well. So you start suffering problems with eating habits change, and you really get upset so quickly. It's like everything becomes like a waiting time for you to just burst out or shout out at another person. So these are mild symptoms. If these are ignored over time, what's likely to happen is that people are likely to go into a depression. Others are likely to take substances like alcohol. I think the other day you saw people actually cluttering together, taking alcohol in pieces of paper, in nylon papers. And you can see those are symptoms of they're trying to numb the feelings, because the inside of them there is a disquiet, and so they're taking alcohol to try to numb those feelings. So you can be able to see it. For those people who cry, they cry much more often. For those people who talk, they talk like non-stop. It's like they're talking too much, and that's a sign of anxiety. Others will not settle down to really do an activity, and there could be a lot of things that you can see regarding mental health.
So what's your advice in terms of what people should do? We're talking about how the society and government should prepare for this kind of disasters, but as an individual, how does one prepare for this kind of circumstances, very difficult circumstances?
Sometimes it's hard to cause people to be in a state where they can prepare for disaster, really. I know we keep hearing from experts in disaster management that we should have like a salary that can take you into like 6 months. Should you be sacked, you should have a salary of 6 months. But how many of us do have this? I know governments, even the US and everybody else, has been taken just quite by surprise by this whole thing. So there are some disasters that we can kind of plan for, like joblessness. Maybe for 2 months I can survive. Someone else may not even be able to survive for a week. So I think really as human beings we have to have a state of mind that prepares us for uncertainty. Really life in itself is uncertain. But much more than this, I think it's being able to accept things as they are right now. If we are in the middle of a disaster right now, we would want to do the things that are right. We want to survive, and so you want to follow the guidelines, like washing hands, like sanitizing, like wearing a face mask. All those are important things to do right now for survival. And that after these, probably we'll be able to prepare and know that we are really vulnerable. I think that's the most important thing.
And in the domestic setting, for example, parents who sometimes feel they've had enough of the children, they've irritated them to death, what's the solution? Is it to walk away?
To walk away from...
I'm saying for people who are even struggling with children, all around you, in the same space, very small space, and it begins to get to you.
I think this whole thing starts, if I'm getting your question well, you're asking if how I should prepare myself so the thing doesn't get into me?
No,
that's what you're saying?
Specifically about children, because if you can still hear me, specifically if you're living around children, spending a lot of time with them, and sometimes it becomes too much for the parent, how should they handle those kind of situation because of maybe that kind of getting a bit too much with the children?
Yeah, it's really a concern how we are handling children right now. We need to talk to them in a way that is child-friendly to be able to help them realize that the situation is not the same. Sometimes we talk in adult terms and they don't understand quite well. Like when we tell them to wash hands, for them, they can wash hands the whole day because what they hear is wash hands all the time. But really, I think it's the communication that that's child-friendly, like telling them, you need to wash your hands because this is going on, really explaining the situation without reprimanding them. I know sometimes parents do get very angry when they see their children going to play with other children and they're like the child will be reprimanded. But really, I think we need to really educate children in such a way that they can be able to understand what we are telling them. When they see us in mask, they need to understand, is there a mask that is my size that I can wear too? And we can be able to probably explain this to them, but much more, let's shelter our children. Let's not allow them to go out and just play with anyone because you don't know how the other person is taking care of their children. Let us show them that we are in charge, we are in control, we are doing the things that are right, and we are helping them very much to also adjust in their small world. Like keeping washing hands in the right way when they get to play out in the field. But I think for children, we need to shelter them quite a lot.
Okay, Dr. Githai, thank you, but stay on the line. Now, staying at home is not easy with cabin fever creeping in, as we've just been discussing. People are therefore coming up with creative ways to cope with their new normal. Brazilian legend footballer Ronaldo reminisces his time in the Champions League team selection and announces staying at home and doing dishes is the new football.
Entertain your callers with your favorite tune when they call you. To get Yeah by Josh Extra, dial star 811 star 930 hash. To get Nakupenda by Mwenye Haki, dial star 811 star 937 hash. To get Bao by Kasim Ganga, dial star 811 star 926 hash. Skiza na Nation.
This is Fact Finder from the BBC.
Conspiracy theories and misinformation about coronavirus is spreading fast online. But what is the truth?
A Sierra Leonean journalist tells us the challenges of delinking satirical work from misinformation.
We'll tell you how Twitter is fighting back against deepfakes and other misinformation.
And did a Kenyan mother thank an atheist society for paying her son's school fees?
How? That doesn't make sense. How?
Well, find out in True or False.
Heaviness and a burning inside, it could be heartburn.
Indigestion and heartburn? Eno gets to work in 6 seconds and works on the 6 symptoms of heartburn so you can keep living life non-stop. Eno, fight heartburn and indigestion fast.
say here comes trouble, here comes the danger. Sent by the Savior, welcome the Rasta youths. I and I start recruit soldiers for Selassie army. Here comes trouble, here comes the danger. Welcome the Savior, welcome the Rasta youths. Get up the access and get in the revolution in the world.
Okay, Babaloki Semela in Gaborone, Botswana, let me come back to you. Give us a sense, you've had disasters in the past in Botswana, in Southern Africa. How well is the Botswana government prepared to handle disasters such as the current one?
Okay, I think what I can say is that currently in Botswana, we don't have a National Disaster Management Act. The only thing that we have is a policy that was enacted in the year 1996. And you can imagine from 96 up to now, we've been having, disaster after disaster. And then this policy, when you interrogate it, it only speaks to floods, droughts, and, wildfires. It is not open. It is not a general policy that will address each and every disaster that comes, which explains why when COVID-19 hit our country, there was a lot of confusion from the leadership out there. Right now, we also, the National Disaster Management Act or policy is actually under the National Disaster Management Office. And when you look at what has been happening from January until now in the wake of COVID, I'll keep on referring to the COVID because this is the current disaster that we are dealing with. We have the director of National Disaster Management Office who have never, went to the media or to the public to update the public on what is going on in the wake of this COVID-19. It is only the Minister of Health and the Director of Health. But now the responsible office for disaster management has been quiet. It has never said anything on the COVID-19, which is why I would like to say I think we are lacking something because the National Disaster Management Office is not as effective or as powerful as it should be in addressing, the disasters in Botswana. And it is also surprising because Botswana houses the SADC Climate Prediction Center, which means most of the Southern African countries, they refer to Botswana to actually, get what do you call the forecasting, weather forecasting, even drought forecasting, floods forecasting. They are actually coordinated from Botswana, and you wonder why Botswana is not able to actually come up with an act that is going to favor the country when the country is able to actually supply all the other 15 countries with reliable information.
So therefore, when you have had other disasters like serious flooding in Botswana in Southern Africa, how has the country handled it? How has Botswana handled other disasters like floods?
Well, in the past, I would say Botswana fared well in terms of containing the disasters. Like most of the disasters that Botswana has dealt with has been droughts and floods. In one or two incidents, we had foot and mouth disease because that we are the producer of beef. So the country managed to actually handle those well. But then there is no any emergency fund that is there to say in case a disaster strikes, we'll be able to go to this disaster. And also when you interrogate our budget, when the Minister of of Finance and Economic Development presented the budget on February, he didn't say anything about disasters. It is only now that the country is reacting to the disaster, which has been the case every year or every time Botswana is actually hit by a disaster. There is always our government has always been reactive. There is no proactive measures in place, especially in the budget at the budget level.
All right. Paulo Kisemelo, thank you very much indeed for joining us from Gaborone in Botswana. Thank you for that update. Now, back to you, Elijah Muli, here in the studio. Let's talk about early warning systems. How good are we at predicting and anticipating? Let's talk about Kenya now.
Okay. So, Joseph, you will agree with me that 90% of the disasters that we experience in the country are hydrometeorological in nature. They are rather climate induced, and we have seen consistently and in the last recent past that we have had almost very accurate predictions, especially with regard to rainfall, with regard to impending dry seasons and stuff like that. So in terms of climate information, and it has been alluded by a number of the speakers, we are not, I would say we are not badly off. The country is not, for lack of information, for lack of technology, for lack of even some of the systems in terms of prediction and also description of what needs to be done. That information is there. I think what now remains to be seen is the translation of this information into actions, into informing, into informative interventions that are aimed at, risk reduction. So in the early warning system, which is a component of the warning itself, the action that need to be taken, and probably now the translation of that into people's behavioral change. Okay. That is the transformation that, Joseph, that is a journey that lies ahead.
Okay. Now, Dr. Gidai, COVID will end. We don't know when, but we will have life after COVID. What kind of society are we going to be once COVID is over? What issues are going to be, troubling us in terms of our mental state?
I think that's a different question, Joseph, because you know how human beings we are. Okay, during time of crisis, it's our time of transition. It's really a crisis. Like immediately after the COVID-19, we will be expecting people to still be a bit watchful, to be a bit very careful, and afraid of the world a bit. And then as these cases go down, we'll forget and probably move on. But what is important is in the long term, people are likely to show symptoms of distress later on. If you look at a condition like a post-traumatic stress disorder, it's only seen much later. And it's after you've gone through a real traumatizing situation, like we go through the trauma. Some people seem to be very good copers when the trauma is going on. And then after that, you start discovering symptoms. So there are people who really are vulnerable, and it could be any of us depending on our resilience levels. And so those ones, we will not be able to see anything until much later. Just like in the case of loss and grief, some people don't know how to grieve immediately when the loss is going on, and they grieve much later, and that's when you see the symptoms. Others will show the symptoms and probably deal with them and be able to move on with life, while others, actually the majority, will be in distress for a short time, and then they'll be able to move on. There are those who are always left behind. If you look at a normal curve, the average person is able to move on, but then there is a small remnant of people who drag the problem along themselves. So we need to watch. We need to watch for different groups of people, like the people who are really in the heart of things right now, like the health workers, like the police, like the rescue teams, and so on. These are people who, in future, we need to take care of them really quite a lot, because they go through what we call secondary traumatization. So you will not see it when they are going through the rescue, the helping, and so on. But you see it much later, because right now they have got the energy to cope, and it's like all their energy has been, put together to be able to cope with the situation. But then later in life, you start seeing symptoms, and so these are people we need to go back to and do what we would call really a debriefing kind of, to make sure that they are psychologically well.
Okay.
There are others who did not experience it really. They just saw things going on. They were able to move on. They were able to adjust well, and those ones have got no problem. The other people who keep asking questions are the children. So we need to keep explaining to them what is going on. And sorry, I forgot to say that some of the ways you deal with children is giving them play activities, artwork, bibliotherapy, which means storytelling, so that they can be able to understand the situation and not in the real hard trauma that is going on in the world. Otherwise, the trauma will follow them later in life. And so we want to preserve our society in terms of let people be sure, let people be educated about what is going on and what they are likely to suffer. When you have got emotion that you're feeling inside, it's time to start using what we call talk cure, when you talk to another person. And that's why I'm saying it's not social distancing. It's really about connectivity. Dr. So that you emote, you talk about it. You tell someone else the feeling that you're,
let me pause you there for a moment, Dr. Gidai. I just want to cross over to Nigeria. Just stay on the line. To Tasso. Tasso, if you can hear me, good morning and welcome to Your World. Tasso, I can see you. Can you hear me? Yes, sorry, we may need to fix your audio. I'm still not able to hear you. Stay on the line. Our engineers are on the case in a moment. Now, Muli, if we have quite a few things to deal with apart from the humanitarian. We're talking about mental health. You're talking about people without jobs, people without incomes, people whose salaries have been reduced, people who don't know what tomorrow brings. Schooling is uncertain or will be uncertain. Do we send our children back to school? If so, when? What kind of exams? So I'm just wondering, in terms of priorities, where are you targeting?
Well, I think at this point, and as we have mentioned earlier, the priorities right now is around reduction of the spread of this the problem that we have at hand.
But even as we reduce, we have to eat.
Yes, we have to eat, and while we still explore the opportunities that are already being presented to us, the top number one priority is around reduction of the numbers, flattening the curve, ensuring that many people don't come into that bracket of being sick. That is number one. But of course, we are not saying that we just focus on that alone. We have to look at, of course, avenues of ensuring that livelihoods continue, livelihoods are preserved. And I think, Joseph, when you look at the raft of measures that have been taken, and you can see there is a very delicate balancing around that. We had an option. The country had an option of a complete lockdown, and that would have been probably, looking at it from an emergency health perspective, would have been the magic probably bullet to be able to cut this. But because of that interest and that recognition of the fact that other facets of life have to continue, then you can see there is progression and scenario, planning and looking ahead and seeing how can we still keep the heart beating at the same time as we fight this particular issue.
Okay, Elijah Muli, thank you. Now, let's take a bit of a break from your world to the other world. Hollywood producer Nicholas Chartier describes the financial and artistic hurdles that the film industry faces amid the coronavirus pandemic. He says that studios are thinking about the idea of making movies that are much more simplified, which means fewer people on screen. A group of activists and superhero fans in the Indonesian city of Makassar wear superhero costumes on the streets and hold signs aimed at raising awareness of the coronavirus. Mexican sister Sandra and Brenda Guterres added a creative twist to a birthday and thank you cakes ordered online after they had to close their bakery over the coronavirus pandemic. An Indian policeman has come up with a novel way of spreading awareness of the coronavirus, a horse covered with diagrams of COVID-19. India is currently under a government-imposed nationwide lockdown. Now, did you know weather is the main cause of natural disasters, but human activity can play a role in how frequently they occur? And in their severity, as we speed up the rate of global warming, hurricanes have become more common and more severe on average. And you know that since 2008, it's estimated that 26.4 million people have been displaced from their homes by natural disasters, which is the equivalent of 1 person per second. Did you know that landslides often accompany earthquakes, floods, storm surges, hurricanes, wildfires, or volcanic activity? They're often more damaging and deadly than the triggering event. Now, let me turn to you, Dr. Gedai, if you're still with me. You have people who have lost incomes, jobs, livelihoods, stuck at home. This is surely a stressed nation.
Joseph, it's very unfortunate that we have got this situation because there are people who are more vulnerable than others. When I don't have food to eat, I'll go and look for food to eat because the natural instinct is I'm hungry, I need food, and it can't wait. And so it becomes very difficult for the government and for the people themselves to be able to really follow up and stay at home. But I would say that it's possible for these people to still follow the guidelines, do the necessary guidelines that the Ministry of Health has been advocating for, and try to keep as safe as possible, and yet still be able to probably do some bit of job and bring back food home. But if our government was capable, really, I think this would be people to feed at this time. I'm sure the government does have a food bank, but that they could give, although we are really so many. I think the thing to do right now is to help these people to be at least to be able to keep the guidelines as they keep safe, as they do the menu jobs that they must do every day, because if we don't have food to give them, then we have to allow them to look for food. Otherwise, hunger will be a bigger disaster than the COVID.
Okay, Dr. Gida. Now let me cross over to Abuja in Nigeria. Tasa, if you can hear me, good morning and welcome to Your World.
Yes, good morning, Joseph. I can hear you now.
Now, first of all, what's the situation of COVID-19 in Nigeria? What are the numbers? What's the situation at the moment?
Yes, Joseph, the situation of COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria at the moment is so worrisome. The pandemic is ravaging the country. At the moment, we have over 1,700 confirmed cases, the latest being 195 confirmed cases yesterday. And then this, if you look at the way it is increasing every day, just in a couple of 2 months, with the index case that was recorded on the 27th of February, and now we have over 1,700 cases. It's indeed worrisome. Lagos has the highest with over 900 cases, followed by Abuja, the nation's capital, and then other states of the Federation.
And how is the government handling this?
Yes, the government has declared a total lockdown in some places like Abuja, Lagos, and Ogun State, and also a couple of some states. And this lockdown has been on for amount now. The first instance was 2 weeks, and then the second instance another 2 weeks, which we earned, which ended on Monday this week. But the government is saying is going to start another easing of the lockdown this coming Monday. What the government is also doing is to provide palliative measures for people, especially the vulnerable, the indigent people, since the lockdown has made them not to go out in search of food. So these palliative measures is to help them cushion the effect of the coronavirus pandemic.
Okay, now let's talk about disasters. Nigeria, like Kenya, has had its fair share of disasters: collapsing buildings, terrorism attacks, flooding, and so on. What experience do the authorities have in terms of how they handle disasters?
Yes, in Nigeria, basically, we have the armed conflicts, which are human-induced, and then the flooding, which is natural disasters. And then the flooding, for instance, has been an annual occurrence. Just last year, out of the 36 states of the Federation, 32 states were flooded. What the government is doing, the government is drawing its strategies from the scientific framework of action to mitigate the impact of these disasters. Just last year, again, the federal government with what it called National Disaster Response Plan, which was in fulfillment of a target of.
Sorry, your line is breaking there in Abuja. So let me turn quickly as we draw towards the end of our show to you, Dr. Githai. What are your tips in this season for us to be able to keep our mental well-being?
Sorry, Joseph, just ask that again.
Your tips on how we can keep our mental wellness in this season?
In this season, mental wellness means that I am selfishly taking care of myself. I don't want to go out there and contract the virus just, in a careless way. When I go out there, I'll follow the guidelines. I will wear a mask, I'll wash my hands and so on. So that's what it means that you are in charge. I think really we need to appreciate the fact that we have got a small sense of control. There are a few things that I can do, and that gives me a bit of, joy, and should give me a bit of mental health. That there's something I can do. It's not just so like out of control, in the sense that there are a few things I can do to protect myself. The other thing is making use of the time. That people should not be overloaded by information all the time, that we are always listening to news and so on. I think we need to plan out the periods of time when you can watch news, when you can read the WhatsApp, you can unfriend people who send negative things to you, and just keep your mind on positivity. Another way you can keep your mind okay is by exercise. Exercise has got a very big way of improving our mental wellness. Walk around. If you don't have a big place, jog on the spot, do exercise, do Zumba, do yoga, all these things that you can do to keep your body active. Other things is you can read a book, you can write a book, you can start journaling, anything that you can do around, around home, like gardening, taking care of, small plants and so on. I think as long as you're taking your mind away from the whole situation, that's the way to go.
Okay, Dr. Githai, thank you. Now, let me come back briefly to Abuja, to you, Teso Zamber. You've got 60 seconds to help us close our program. What are Nigerians looking forward to, life after COVID?
Yes, Nigerians are anxiously expecting this COVID-19 to come and go so that they...
Sorry, your voice has come and gone, I'm afraid, Teso Zamber. So I'll have to break that connection from Nigeria. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. A very tiny word from you, your last thought in 10 seconds.
Yeah, for me, Joseph, I think what I can say for Kenyans is that, of course, everyone is looking forward for that time, that time that life will be back to normal. and the complete cycle of our interventions, as it were, are restored. But as you mentioned earlier, it's a new normal. Some things will change. Probably we may never go back to the things we were used to. We have to adapt to the new system until a time when we are able to have sufficient resilience for the many things that are around us.
Okay, Elijah, thank you. Let me have a look at what you've been saying on our hashtag new normal. These are some of your comments, the ones that have come in from on WhatsApp and on Twitter. This one is from Dokas Moniki. Come on, Kenya, live up to the title of the greatest economy, East and Central Africa. Ms. Kimani, you are so on point there. Thank you very much indeed, responding to Sarah Kimani earlier. And Nancy Munyi, well, putting the priorities in place. Tea and snacks, spending 10 million on that. This is in response to the money that was allegedly spent by the Ministry of Health. What is that? This happens in Kenya only, where everyone, including the big people, look at what they can stand to benefit. Thank you, Nancy. Another comment from Kasio Kalu, the government is helping, but people are stubborn. Is it just a Kenyan thing to be stubborn? I don't know. Thank you, Kalu. Another comment from Wesley Kimutaingeno, the role of opposition has been rendered useless. Oh, do we still have politics? Yeah. Now everything is done against the common wananchi. Thank you, Wesley. And we have another one here from Esther Obwong. Waheshimiwa, mwafanya nini? Chakula kilienda wapi jamani? Okay, cry out for hunger, do something about it. Steve Karanja, it's time you start doing something. We need action. Tumechoka na meno. Yet kuna 4 million za snacks pahali. Thank you very much, Kanja, and thank you, Eliud Muli, Elijah, for joining us from the Red Cross. We also were joined by David Owino. Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Eunice Gedai from Kenyatta University, our friend Teso Zamba from Abuja in Nigeria, and all the guests who joined us earlier. Thank you very much indeed. We're back tomorrow with a workout session, which will help you keep fit and stay less gloomy at 6:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. And then your world is back at 7 a.m. tomorrow. On behalf of the NTV crew here, good morning, stay safe.
Help women find independence by training them in fish farming. It's tough on my back, joints, and can cause headaches. Panadol Extra relieves multiple types of pain. If symptoms persist, seek medical advice.
East Africa is transforming. And so are we. We're now more diverse, more visual, more engaging. Grab a copy of the new East African. To subscribe, email subscription@ke.nationmedia.com or e-paper@ke.nationmedia.com.